Alright, yeah, I'm gonna just get straight into this. Throughout my life, going through school, you know, because I started kindergarten in '89, and going through like, elementary school and high school, especially with elementary school, there was like nobody didn't have the internet. I didn't start getting on the internet until like '99, so I would say my freshman year of high school, I think. When I started living with my grandmother. And so, throughout the 90s, you go through school and then, you know, in the sixth grade, they started putting me in what they used to call like learning disability classes, but now I think it's like called special ed or something. And so I never really thought too much of it, like as far as like there was like something wrong with me. But I always felt in the back of my mind like the other kids, you know, was kind of like low key basically making fun of me because I was in these different like classes. But I don't even think they really knew at the time until like later in life, later. Because, generally speaking, how it was that, once we all kind of was going like we all kind of went to the same school, except for high school where they kind of split us up to do two different schools. But we generally still hung out with the same people, even if they was in another like part of town from us. So, they put me in these classes in the sixth grade, and I always felt like I wasn't as smart as other kids or like kind of like less than. And so that's where I would say a good chunk of my depression came from, was from school. And so, growing up, I used to like, I still do, but, I'm still like, drawing and everything. Was, a, I was always known for drawing something all the time. But there was always some like snot nosed kid always talking about like, oh, my 13-year-old cousin could draw better than you, or and it was always this random 13-year-old cousin. They could never prove where this cousin came from. But anyway, I digress. And so going through school, being in these classes made me feel a certain way about like myself. And so I remember one time and it was like I think it was in seventh grade. And I asked the vice principal, I told her my story, like, I don't want to be in these classes anymore because there was this girl, there was several girls I used to like. And I used to think that they didn't like me because I was in those classes. And again, it made me, my self-esteem, was low and, you know, not thinking I was ever good enough. And so I remember telling the vice principal one time, I was like, I want to get out these classes. What can I do to get out of them? And so she told me, if you get on the honor roll, I can get you out. So I said, okay, cool. So, I studied, did what I had to do, got mostly A's and B's. And so I got the honor roll sticker, like the bumper sticker and everything. I still have it. It's somewhere and it's somewhere put up somewhere, but I still have it. My mom never unpeeled it and put it nowhere, so it's still there. And it says what year it was. It was like 97, 98 or something like that. So I'm like, okay, cool. So can I get out? No, I was still there. I was in there up until high school. And then I dropped out of high school because it's just like I can't. Because even in high school, I was like, what's the point? Basically, I have this kind of like defeatist attitude. Like, what's the point of doing the work if I can't get out of the shit? And that's how I was feeling like this whole time. So, I'm feeling a certain way, my self-esteem is low and everything, feeling like I'm never good enough to get out of my circumstances. Because again, you got like, I'm trying to get out these classes, I'm drawing pictures, I'm doing it better than everybody, but again, it's like, oh, you can't draw better because my 13-year-old cousin could draw better than you. So it's just always this thing about somebody always challenging me on something, but rather I can beat them and it ain't good enough, or they say these things and it's like nobody's challenging me on it. It's just like my 13-year-old cousin, because we're like in high school or like whatever, and it's like my 13-year-old cousin could draw better than you. Okay, where's this 13-year-old cousin at? Whatever. Or even if they said I could draw better than you, then prove it, and they couldn't. You know, they sucked ass, and and I beat them, but it's still like after I beat them, it's still like kind of like, oh, I was on my off day, or you still trash anyway. And then trying to get out of these learning disability classes and can't get out of them. I mean, I did the work and you still got me in these classes. So it's like, growing up, and even my cousin was saying like, oh, I'm that's why I'm smarter than you type. You know what I mean? Like, I'm smarter than you. And I always heard this from him every time. Like, it stopped after '08. But even like growing up as kids, he lived in another state, but every time he would visit, him and his brothers would visit, it was always me and him. He was always getting on me about like, I'm smarter than you type thing. So it's just like growing up, I just always had this defeatist attitude. And so, then the internet started popping off, and all this time I kept hearing about people with dyslexia, but I never too much looked into what it actually was. I just heard that people had it, but never was like, curious enough to what it was. So I'm like, just doing me, whatever. And so all this time, I would say, I think like maybe like a few months ago, really. Like, what month is this? January, February? I would say like in December somewhere, November or December of 2020. I was watching this video of Joel McHale from Community and Car Sharks. I think that's the show he's on. And he was doing like this Google, like this thing about Google, like Joel McHale is, or how old is Joel McHale? It's just like questions and answers. And so he said that he was dyslexic, and for some odd reason, I was like, okay, what is dyslexic really is? What is it? Because I kept hearing about it from different people, and so I finally looked into it, and they were saying how people with dyslexia, have a slight problem deciphering how words are on, like they have a problem manipulating words on a page. And even going to school, like I always had this kind of like performance anxiety reading in front of like class, like my classmates, because I'm thinking like, if I mess up, they know why I'm in these like learning disability classes. So I tried to not like to read like, oh, I'm not feeling so good type thing. And so now the internet and YouTube is like, got like thousands of videos and everything. I'm looking into it, and they said like people that suffer from dyslexia have problems manipulating words. And then you start hearing stories like one from um you start seeing like people with dyslexia, like famous people with it, that that have dyslexia. And it's like, damn, like you see a lot of famous people like Joel McHale and everything, and Steven Spielberg, Whoopi Goldberg. And it's like, damn. And then you start seeing like Kevin from Shark Tank. And you start seeing like a lot of people that have it. But it's like they're successful at it. And then come to find out, um, they say people that have dyslexia they're more creative, you know, because people with dyslexia use the right and frontal lobe of the brain, and that's the creative side. The right side is the creative side, and they use the frontal lobe. And you know, those people are more creative than people that just use the left side. And so, even growing up, like drawing and doing all this stuff and like writing stories and just coming up with like scenarios and then making stories out of them, growing up and still to this day, you know that starts to ring true about me having dyslexia. Like that was the thing, and the school never, especially back then, not too many people knew about stuff like that. So, but it was like never diagnosed. You know what I'm saying? It was just, you was just in these classes and that's it. And it's like, now that I know and seeing all these like successful people with it and being really successful at what they're doing, now is like that was like kind of like the missing piece of the puzzle in my life. And so, now I'm kind of looking at certain stuff different. So thanks, Joel McHale. You know what I'm saying? For like kind of like bringing that up and it kind of like putting me on that path to see like, okay, this is what the deal is, basically. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm trying to think. Jay Leno. Jay Leno. I remember he was going through. I think he was going through his old school and he was being interviewed. And he used to say like, he used to not focus in school. He used to wander, in class, just start daydreaming or say, it was something like that. So it was like that's basically me. Just um just going through school, not being distracted even with my own thoughts. And it's like that's exactly how I was feeling growing up. And then now, since like I said, now since the internet is a thing, now it's just like I could kind of like, I won't say diagnose myself, but now I have better tools to know what my situation is. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then even with how I was growing up and thinking that I wasn't as smart as other people, I use my creativity to basically overcompensate for the lack of whatever. It's like I never wanted people to know what was really going on, you know. So I just overcompensated for like stuff like with like my art. Like if I'm drawing, I'm coming up with clothes. I'm even doing 3D modeling for like, for my own game. I'm writing my own story. I come up with my own clothes because I gotta put the clothes on the models. Um, Writing song lyrics, coming up with different beats, on like my pro on my laptop. So it's like nobody could ever say like, "Oh, this dude was dumb." You know what I'm saying? Because it'd be like, how could he be dumb if he could write songs and do all this shit? And that's basically how it was coming from. So I was like overcompensating for like I didn't want to read in front of people or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Then I'm seeing like different actors, like behind the scenes doing table reads. I'm like, damn, I couldn't do that. You know what I mean? Because I have a problem with reading in front of people as it is. So, like I said, I'm just like, damn, like if it wasn't for Joel McHale on some real shit, I wouldn't have known about. Like I wouldn't have looked into it. I'll say that. I wouldn't have looked into it. But oh man, this is kind of weird. Cause I never do top right first. I always do top left. And I hate doing eyebrows. But anyway. But it's like because anyway, going back to the story in hand, but it's just like, you know, I would say like with the internet, there's a lot of problems with the internet. A lot of them. But it's like, you know, because of the internet though, like you're starting to be in like you're starting to be in situations where you see that you're not alone. Like there's people going through similar things that you're going through. And even like I said, seeing like all like Steven Spielberg, like damn, like if you want to like get on like people with dyslexic people, like oh they're you know they're not as smart, but then then you be like you watch Jurassic Park or AI, you be watching these Steven Spielberg movies, and be like oh he's a genius director, but then you find out he got dyslexia, and then it's like damn. Or like I said, like Kevin from Shark Tank, like I mean he knows how to manage money. He seems like a good businessman, and it's like damn he has it too. You know what I'm saying? Or like different actors and stuff. Like, yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but I think Samuel Jackson. I've heard Samuel Jackson. I think maybe Will Smith and Keanu Reeves have it. It's like, damn, you know what I'm saying? Like they're like the biggest actors ever. So it's just kind of like, you know, and then you start hearing that it it runs in the family. You know, my grandfather might have been dyslexic. But then it's like it goes like boys suffer, like boys have it more than girls. You know what I'm saying? Like you start kind of like hearing these different stories, and it's like you know what I mean. You start hearing these different things, and then you like I said, you start applying it to your life. You be like, damn. Now I'm trying to figure out these numbers. Come on, what number is it? Oh, I should go. No, I think this is it. Yeah, this is it. Like I said, this is why I hate doing eyebrows. And then especially like I usually do the left, then the right, and then I mirror. Anyway. So, like I said, on that front, with this whole dyslexic thing, you know, I don't feel, so bad now. This especially like, I'm grown now, you know what I mean? Like I'm not holding on. Well, yes I am. I'm not even going to lie. I'm still holding on to the past basically. Like almost like this coulda woulda shoulda thing. Like I wish I would have known, you know, certain things that I know now back then. And that's why like you know even even like right now, I see a therapist and everything, because I just feel like school, like going to school, really, fucked up my self-esteem basically. And you know what I'm saying? Like, I used to talk to my other therapists about, growing up in school and how that affected me, messed up my self esteem. And now it's like kind of taking me a long time to kind of get over that whole school thing. I mean, it's a hard thing to get over, especially, you know, not being where I want to be in life isn't helping either. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of like that thing. So it's like I'm feeling better about myself now than like a year or two ago, but it's still hard. You know what I mean? Like it's even like, again, going through school, you know, doing what I had to do to get out those classes, but still not getting out of them. Or, people saying I could draw better than you and I could draw better than them. And it was like always still some pushback. Like nobody ever conceded. Like, okay, dude, okay, you got me, or whatever. So now it's just like being grown and doing, like, starting to do 3D modeling now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would have never thought I would have been doing something like this like a year or two ago. So now doing 3D modeling is like, damn, I can make video games now. But it's like life is telling me I can't. You can't get out your circumstances. You know what I'm saying? Even though I'm still doing what I'm doing, because I actually like doing this. Even though, like, it's giving me a little bit of a problem right now, but I still like doing this. So in my own mind, I'm successful. But in the outside world, in the real world, it's like life is telling me, nope, you can't get out of your circumstances. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, I mean, I try to do what I gotta do, but at the same time, you know what I mean? It's still like I'm still fighting what I was fighting before. Damn. Like, I'm still fighting this whole thing. I'm still trying to prove that I'm still smart. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not that kid anymore type thing. You know what I mean? Like, I could do what I have to do to get out, and I will keep trying until I finally, get basically kind of get the validation type thing. You know what I mean? Even though you shouldn't try to get validation, but it's like a different type of validation. Like, I made it type validation. So, you know what I mean? So that's just how it is. And it's just like, again, nobody ever diagnosed this when I was in school or anything. It was just like, you just in here. I mean, even though, I mean, it's just like, I don't know. It's like I can't fault the schools per se for not knowing. Because, I mean, because even like going to school back in the 90s, I mean, nobody knew about certain things and ADHD and ADD and all this other stuff then. So it was just like, because it was kind of like a learning disability behavioral disability classes, which they call LDBD classes. And it was like, that's just where they send the kids that weren't normal. You know what I mean? But see, my thing was like, I just didn't feel like school was the business, really. You know what I'm saying? Because, I mean, going to school, they teach you the same thing like every year. It was boring. And, even for me, I'm more of a visual learner than a book learner. Like, if I see something, then it's like, okay, I get it, I could do it. You know, so back then it was just like, if you weren't like a, reading books or a book learner, then you was just like, whatever, then something is wrong with you type. You know what I mean? It was like that type. So now, things are different. Where different people have different afflictions and different type of issues, and schools cater to certain people with certain issues. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like that. So, but like I said, after all this time, it's like, oh, that's me type. Watching that video of Joe, I was like, okay, cool. I mean, look at him. He's successful. You see what I'm saying? He's in one of my favorite TV shows. But, at the time, like I said, school, I don't know, man. It's just like, and I even feel a certain way about school, to be honest. It just feels like, if you're not trying to be a doctor, lawyer, or scientist or something, then it just feels like you really don't need school. You know what I'm saying? Like, then you got people like in different like fields. Like, I'm trying to be a marine biologist, and they get out in the real world, and all they could do is work at McDonald's or something. You know what I mean? And no shade to people that's working at McDonald's. I'm just, saying, like, they're not doing what they spent thousands of dollars in tuition for. And then they got all this student debt. It just seems pointless. Like, if you going through the shit, like trying to be like some like marine biologist or something, it's just, I don't know, like that. That's why YouTube exists. You know what I'm saying? You could learn different shit on YouTube. You don't need the traditional school to learn how to do certain things. You know what I mean? And I just feel like, I got this thing against school, basically. Because I just feel like they kind of like, even with kids nowadays, they kind of got it, I wouldn't say easier, but again, if Timmy is going through some things, there's people that will help his ass. You know what I'm saying? But if this was back in the day, he would have got played. You know what I'm saying? And he would have got roasted. Nobody would have been trying to protect him because they roasted him, and he would just have to take that shit. You know what I mean? They would have been heating up on him. Rather, he would have, heated up on them back, or just, took it. You know what I mean? That's just how it is. That's how they would have treated dude if this was back in my day. You know what I'm saying? Like I would say, cause even this one dude I watched, he was talking about how he used to grow up in the 70s and 80s, and then I was telling my mom that, and she was like agreeing with what he was saying, and I was kind of saying like I didn't grow up in the 70s, but I was a baby. I was a baby in the 80s, and I'm a 90s kid, blah blah blah. But it was like that's how we used to live too. I mean, we used to, like, if you lost, you lost. There was no participation trophies type shit. You know what I'm saying? You rather got good or you died. It was that attitude. You know what I mean? But now it's just like I said, schools, they kind of like coddle kids nowadays. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's kind of a slightly good thing, and slightly not, because it doesn't toughen people up. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't, like, make you tough in a way. You know what I mean? But again, you don't want to be like shaming people to be like, you're less than. You know what I mean? So I don't know, but it's just like school. I don't know, bro. See, I used to tell my therapist this shit a lot. You know what I'm saying about school? Because school wasn't cool. And that's honestly why I dropped out. I'm going to be honest. I dropped out of the shit. Like, I think, like, the beginning of my senior year, but I didn't have enough credits to graduate, so I basically said, fuck it. Because I wasn't doing the work. Because I hated waking up in the morning, going to. So I mean, I eventually got my high school diploma though. I eventually got this shit, but at the time, I hated getting up in the morning, early in the morning, and then like in the suburbs and everything, like up, like in the Chicagoland area. Especially the winters hit and you getting up in the morning and the cold hits your face. I hated that shit. You understand that? And then it was like, it's just like doing the same thing. It just never felt like it was worth the effort and time going to school anyway. Like, cause the same stuff they was teaching us in elementary school, it was the same thing. It was just like a little bit, slightly more advanced. With like we didn't start doing algebra until high school. You know what I mean? But it was like every year was the same multiplication, blah blah blah, whatever. So that's how it is with school. So, all, like I said, all these years, and then finding out like I got some form of dyslexic. It's not, because there's different stages to it. It's not as like severe as, like, some people have more severe cases, and some have mild cases. And I would say, like, I have more of a mild case of it. You know what I'm saying? But even it's kind of like weird because even growing up, like, growing up playing video games, and it's like, you had to know algebra, or you had to be in this type of like field to make video games. And then, you know, seeing like, because my favorite video games at the time was Mario, Sonic. There was Japanese people making that. So it was like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you were going to get into this, you would at least know how to like code and know algebra, trigonometry, calculus. It was like, fuck that. You know what I'm saying? And it just defeated me even attempting to try to get into it. But then my man showed me like this, not this particular program, but he showed me one program, and I was like, oh, I could do this shit from home? You know what I'm saying? And then like seeing different videos and shit, how to do it, it was like, oh, I can do this because I'm picking it up because I'm seeing how to do it. If it was like I had to read a book to do it, I definitely would have said fuck it. Because I think reading, it just comes off dry to me, and I get bored or I'm wandering off somewhere in my thoughts. But like a video is like, and seeing how people are doing it, then it's like, okay, cool. But like I said, back in the day, nobody was doing like videos, you know, because there was no YouTube then. When YouTube started in 05, I've been out of school since then. So it's just like, you know, now it just seems kind of, even looking, because I could look at stuff from the outside in. Because I'm like I said, I create stories and everything. I could put myself in other people's shoes. So it's kind of like looking at somebody doing this. It's just kind of like, how could this person be dyslexic? Because I mean, this isn't easy, but it's easy when you get the hang of it. It's just a tedious process. Because as you can see, this is why I do not like working on eyebrows. I hate doing eyebrows. And I did like eyebrows for like over 200 something characters. And I'm redoing the eyebrows on her. And I just don't like it. I do not like working on eyebrows. But like I said, that's the only, for me, like, I just don't like the tedium of working on eyebrows. But the rest of the stuff, even if it's tedious or not, it's cool. Like working on clothes, like trying to work around like different design aspects of the clothes. Like, how am I supposed to do this, and different geometry and everything. So looking at that is just weird. Like, how could this person be dyslexic? If you don't know the ins and outs of being dyslexic, how could this person be dyslexic if they know how to like seeing wireframes and knowing how to do 3D modeling? But somebody that's versed in the field, like doctors or people that diagnose this type of stuff, be like, oh, I can see why. You know what I mean? Because people that are dyslexic use the right side of the brain more than others. And then, like I said, me was always like overcompensating it to mask the fact that I had problems, but finding out I'm hiding, covering up the fact that I'm dyslexic or have some type of form of it. So now it was just like, I just said, fuck it. I'm making this video. I don't give a fuck what anybody say. Because, I mean, I'm secure in what I do. And so what could you say? Because, I mean, it's not like you could say anything about, like, I write scripts. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got a guy back in 2015, I think. He gave me a screenwriting program, and I've been writing scripts ever since. You know, just, you know, and then just seeing how, because he gave me like other scripts from different movies, like Some Like It Hot. It was just a whole bunch of movie scripts he gave me, like a lot of them, and just seeing how they were formatted and seeing how they like look. And you know, like, I like movies, and it's just like, oh, this is how it looks. And then he gave me the program, you know, and I kind of looked at what the different symbolisms mean, like OC, VO, and it was like, oh. And then I already wrote a novel and released the novel back in, what was it, 2011, 2012. So it wasn't like this was a foreign concept to me. And then even my prior script all the way back in 99, which I thought I was doing something. You know what I'm saying? It was like I wrote it on some type of program. It wasn't like a script writing thing. But I've been writing like movie scripts back in 99. So when dude gave me the program, it was like, oh, okay, cool. And then, like I said, I've been doing it ever since. So that's me, like, basically doing the most. Like, you can't say nothing about it. You know what I mean? And then, like I said, you seeing all these different successful people that that have dyslexia, and it's like, okay, how could you? I mean, these dudes are successful millionaires. I mean, even though if you have millions of dollars, that don't necessarily mean nothing. But it's just the fact that you're not alone if you feeling you're alone. You know what I mean? Because you could find like a community of people that feels just like you. Like I said, like Whoopi Goldberg and Steven Spielberg and shit. It's like, whoa. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I be seeing seeing them like most of my whole life. Watching their movies, the movies they in, the movies they direct. It's like, and then you start seeing like other people that like artists and different like philosophers or some shit. They got it. It's like, oh, it's not. I could kind of hold my head up high type thing. Because like people around me never said that they were, or like, you know what I'm saying. So literally, I was feeling like, you know, like alone type thing. Because even like my best friend never said he has it, or like my other friend, he never said nothing. You know what I'm saying? I know my mom doesn't have it. Nobody in my family ever said they had it. You know what I'm saying? So I'm thinking that I'm the only one. You know what I'm saying? And I never really looked into it, so I didn't know. I never looked until for some reason when Joel McHale said it, I was like, what is this? And then I finally saw it and I was like, oh. So now you starting to see like, other successful people have it and they're living their lives and doing what they do, and it's like, oh, okay, now I don't feel so bad. You know what I mean? But it's still like for me, I'm still trying to fight the fact that I am smart. I'm just as smart as other people. But it's just like my circumstances just remind me. Like the life and the circumstances are like the vice principal. Like you can get on the honor roll and I get on it and it's like, no, you can't get out. But it's just like, fuck it. I just keep doing me. I just keep doing this in my attic. Um, working on these eyebrows. You know what I mean? And that's just how it is. Wait a minute. Why is this? Oh no. You know what I mean? But so what is this? Top left, top right. So I gotta delete the bottom. Like I said, I never do the top right. So this is kind of like weird on this side starting off. So I'm about to bounce and do the rest of this off camera. But that's basically the story. Yeah, let me just do this real quick. Dude. Let me get rid of this. Like I said, the process of this is real tedious, though. And since there's a mirror modifier on the actual cat, it's mirroring everything. And then I'm going to slightly lower her eyebrows. Just slightly. Then I got to kind of reformat them since I moved them. Like looking at it in object mode. Well, it's not in object mode now. It's in edited mode because I'm on the eyelashes in edited mode. But like I said, seeing it like... But anyway. But that's my story. I'm out. Money over stank holes.